Hello and welcome. I'm Rick, your guide to the past, and today we're going to be stepping back about 1,000 years and then slowly wandering forwards over about 500 or 600 years towards today. Today's topic is based on the current school curriculum and is a request from a friend, but it's got some relevance to what's going on with us all today, and I'm going to talk to you about medieval healthcare and medicine. This is going to be a very brief introduction to the topic, and it's going to be part of a small series that are going to address different elements of healthcare, medicine, and surgery of the past. Today, I'm going to talk to you about some of the different historical healthcare professions and introduce you to some of the folks that took care of the sick and injured in medieval and early modern Britain. But first, an aside. Now, I'm likely to be throwing around an assortment of terms, which I do intend to explain. If I miss out, just ask in the comments. However, one thing I should make clear is what I mean by medieval and early modern, as these are names that I'm going to throw around, and they're names that historians use for broad parts of the past. Depending on the criteria the historian's using, they can refer to quite different times. As I'm working in Britain, mostly, I'm going to take medieval as being post-Roman, so around 400 CE, through to the end of what I think is a logical end to the medieval period, which is the Battle of Bosworth, the end of the Wars of the Roses, death of Richard III, and accession to the throne of Henry VII in 1485. The Tudors reformed the country politically, economically, and militarily, and Henry VII's reign marks the end of a long period of instability and warfare. So for me, that makes quite a good place to draw the end of the medieval period and the beginning of the early modern. The start of the French Revolution is often used as the end of the early modern period and the start of modernity, and I will use that, but some people use other dates for one or both or all of these, using the Industrial Revolution or the Enlightenment in Italy or whatever works for them and their topic. What medieval and early modern mean doesn't really matter too much as long as you know what they mean to you and what you're working in. The really big change for medicine comes with modernity and the discovery of germs in the 18th century. So broadly, what I'm going to be talking about is relatively right throughout. So let's get back to the content. This video looks at things in late medieval and early modern Britain. It's fairly general, and I'm not going to cover things in any great depth, but instead I'm going to speak generally. So please forgive me for any small errors or confusion that does creep through. If you spot anything or you're confused about anything, just be pleased to post some comments, and I'll be happy to clarify matters. One thing to remember though, until July 1948 there was no NHS and no welfare state. So if you were sick or ill and you needed treatment, then you'd be forced to pay for it. If you couldn't afford to pay, or you weren't able to find a professional medical practitioner, perhaps you live in the countryside or in a smaller town, as most people did, then you might have lived somewhere that didn't have any professional healers or didn't have access to them. You might be reliant on folk wisdom or a trip to get teeth pulled by a blacksmith or to visit a hedge doctor, a herb wife or a midwife. These were often older people, and women did tend to live longer than men, so it may well be an old woman, somebody that knew something of healing. But if things went badly, or if ill fortune struck, there was a drought or a pestilence, those practitioners of medicine might find themselves accused of witchcraft. There were risks in the past for healers as well as their patients. However, enough of me, let's consult an expert. Good day. Physicians, such as myself, were educated men who understood the world through science, or at least through the best science of the day. Notably, the understanding of the humours, the four humours, and of disease through miasma. One of these said that all living things were made of a balance of vital fluids, linked to the four classical elements: earth, air, fire, and water. And when those elements were in balance, the body was healthy. And when they were imbalanced, it was not. The other taught that disease was caused by an invisible presence, a poisonous vapour called a miasma, which originated in rotting organic matter. And so they looked for bad smells as a clue to finding and removing them. A key tool for physicians was this, a urine jar. And just as doctors and nurses do today, physicians would examine what came out of a patient to better understand the health of the whole. In the 11th and 12th century, a physician might rely solely on this, giving a diagnosis without even meeting their patient. But practice evolved, and by the 13th and 14th centuries, few would consider it anything other than a charlatan's trick to do that. But urine remained and remains a key diagnostic tool. Originally, all kinds of treatment could be found in monastic hospitals, but at some point between the 10th and 12th centuries, the Pope forbade church folks from drawing blood, and that meant that some things that they could offer were now limited. You can't perform surgery without a bit of blood. Other people stepped into the breach, and luckily, surgery, or the need for surgery, was relatively rare, and it would rarely be enough work to support a livelihood on its own. So people other than myself were involved as part-time surgeons. People like pig gelders, like blacksmiths and farriers, and even midwives. But the most common combination was that of barber-surgeon, such as myself. Probably the most common service, surgical service that's offered though, uses one of these. This is a fleam, and this sharp point here is used to make an incision into a vein, and then this pointed bit goes in to keep the vein open, allowing the blood to drain into a bowl. If you don't like a fleam, you can always use leeches, but bloodletting is a really important surgical service. The third, and probably most common medical profession, was that of apothecary. People who make drugs and medicines, but also who mix other chemicals and compounds, from ink and paint to rat poison or cleaning materials. Many of them were also grocers or spice merchants or dealt in other commodities. Many people would have an understanding of herbal or natural medicine, and some of the treatments used by everyday people, be they herbalists, apothecaries or just average folks, are still in use today. The bark of the willow tree was used to relieve pain, for example, and it's the active ingredient in aspirin today. Apothecaries would use pestles and mortars to grind ingredients, often herbs and spices, minerals and plants, into pastes and powders. These pastes and powders might be used as they were, or distilled and brewed into liquids or pills. Chemists today still use the glassware and coloured liquid or pestle and mortars to advertise their trades. Well, that was a whirlwind introduction to some of the people who might have treated you in the past if you were under the weather, if you were sick or you were injured. But there's a lot more to explore on the topic, so future videos will look at some of the theories of medicine, notably the four humours and miasma theory, and I'll show you some of the tools and reproduction artefacts in my collection, some of the things that people used to try and make you well again. If there's anything you'd like to know, please drop me a comment below. Similarly, this topic was at a request, so if there's anything you'd like me to cover, something else you want me to talk about, please do say. You can follow me on Facebook or Twitter, and once I'm back out and about in the world at large, I'll be on Instagram once again. Meanwhile, if you like this video, please like it and subscribe for more. Until next time, stay safe, stay happy, and see you soon. Goodbye.